The right to offend is not some pesky little part of freedom of speech that we have to put up with. It is the heart and soul and lungs of freedom of speech. It is the coursing lifeblood of human progress. It is the instigator of liberty and modernity and science and understanding. What a laughing stock today's student leaders are, that they can so casually dismiss the right to be offensive without realizing that their lovely, enlightened lives are the gift of individuals who gave offense. Offensiveness is not just something we have to begrudgingly accept. Offensiveness is the motor of human progress.
Now broadcasting from the Right to Offend Media Studios in sunny South Florida, bringing you the latest in politics, current events, art, and pop culture. This is the Whitfield Report Live with Sam Whitfield.
But giving offense is good. In fact, it's essential.
Alrighty, folks, good evening and welcome to tonight's edition of the Whitfield Report podcast. I am your host, Sam Whitfield, recording here from Right to Offend Media Studios here in South Florida. And joining me for tonight's show is Richard Maverick. We've had him on the show before, author of the Losers series. And Richard was kind enough to join us. This is the first interview we've had back after the whole, news a few weeks ago with Charlie Kirk. A few guests, understandably decided to postpone, after that happened, and it's just been really kind of a chaotic time for us all. But Richard put out a very moving, I don't know if you want to call it a tribute, but just kind of a video on Charlie and what he meant, to Richard. And so I found it very moving personally as someone who met Charlie, once, as many listeners may or may not know. But anyway, Richard, welcome to the show, and how have you been, man?
Thank you for having me, Sam. I've been pretty good. I've been busy. Trying to get the final edits done of the volume 3 before we kick that over for release. I want to say the release date's November 18th. The cover will get a facelift. There's already a new cover design for it. So what you see behind me is the art copies. So
the art copies still look pretty good, man. I have to say.
When I did them just on the Amazon cover creator thing, and they turned out. I gotta, you get a picture of it from Amazon, right? And I took a picture on my computer with my phone. And I sent it, I posted it out, and a few people were like, you can't see it good. You can't see the lettering good. It kind of blends too much. But when I actually got the physical copies in of the ARC, it turned out way better than Amazon led me to believe it was going to. So.
That's the thing with like the whole cover creator thing I've noticed too. It helps have like a print copy of the books. As well, just because particularly like if you're doing colors like reds or yellows, like I found that sometimes like the yellows I use in my font are like a lot brighter or a lot darker in print than they are on the computer when I'm designing them, or something like that. So it always helps to have a proof copy to kind of just check over how things look, not just in the cover, but also in like the page formatting and whatnot. So
I was in a little bit of a hurry. I didn't really let it. I just kind of, I ordered 40 copies to give away total right off the bat. I didn't
Yeah.
and got a hold of my other cover designer and said, "Hey, guy, you got a couple weeks. Take your time."
Yeah. I mean that sometimes it's just stuff like that that I think people kind of lose track of, that's why kind of the production part of it takes a bit longer. Is like I've written like sometimes writing the story itself will only take like about like 6 months to a year or something. If
Mhm.
you're writing a novella, 3 to 6 months, but then making sure that the proofs look good and whatnot, that's where kind of the time
Yeah.
takes place. So, um, and also you've been, pretty good about promoting stuff on social media, despite the fact that Instagram seems to want to, well, I don't know if kick you off is the term, but if you no longer have like, I don't know
Enough
what the
followers.
numbers like, yeah, you
Yeah,
can no longer
they
do,
booted me from doing live because I was going live every Sunday, and
yeah,
they booted me from it because I need 1,000 followers to do it. So I at least figured out a cheat code for that. Did a little video after the Charlie Kirk shooting, um, and was able to post it. Now I was told that not the whole video posted, but that's fine too. So
yeah. Well, I saw that the whole video didn't post, and I know that this isn't really a political show, but I mean I think it's pretty safe to say, based on conversation, I know your politics and you know
mhm.
mine. Irregardless, though, I mean, how have you been dealing with that whole, I guess, thing with Charlie Kirk's passing? I mean, I've heard from multiple guests who have just been apoplectic, I guess. But what is your kind of reaction? I think you had a pretty good, a pretty measured take, actually, compared to some people that
compared
I know.
compared, I've got the unpopular opinion um, that I think the Republican Party could have prevented this years ago.
Go on.
And um, because they could have, with a Republican-controlled Senate, House and Senate, they could have passed a bill years ago to shut down the unsubstantiated rhetoric, the
Yeah,
racism. If you have a senator, you're a public servant. You work for me. And if you're going to call me a racist, you better be able to back that shit up.
yeah,
Okay. And if you can't back it up, if it's because I didn't vote the way you wanted me to, out the door you go. Special election, replace the moron, get somebody else in there. And I don't care if it's red or blue, the rhetoric's got to quit. But the
yeah,
Republicans make too much money off the division, just like the Democrats did.
yep,
That's why they won't pass any kind of bill that'll shut that shit down.
yeah,
That's my big take on it. That's my big takeaway from the Charlie Kirk shooting is that it could have been prevented,
yeah.
but no one
It's
is willing to do it.
it's so funny you say that, though, because like that's something that I have particularly been. That's something I've actually been writing about, not necessarily in like not necessarily in like a nonfiction way, but that's one of the
Mhm.
themes, kind of in my series, Shadows of Deception, that like a lot of this division and whatnot, it almost seems to kind of be planned, so to speak, by both party elites. And like I've gotten a few people who have been like, well, Sam, like I'm not one of these people that like tries to predict stuff to write in my books. Like I'm not
Mhm.
trying to do the whole Brad Thor things, but I mean I've been in political commentary for a long time. I've read, I've talked to people in the intelligence community. Granted, most of them are retired, but even so, like I don't think a lot of this stuff is super hard to like see if you observe things. And so I think Obama getting rid of like the Smith-Mundt Act in particular was was pretty harmful. And, it's like I've said, I don't really care if someone's like an evangelical or if they're like or if they, believe in the whole LGBTQ thing. Like, I personally don't like either extreme, but, you're welcome to have your opinion. My whole thing is when it gets to the point where we can't even have a civil conversation, that's when I start to worry. And we've kind of seen, unfortunately, the worst kind of, the worst possible result of that.
One of the things in the first edition of Our War that was released in 2020, that was something I talked about in the beginning of the book that I actually did remove in the second edition, was we need to have a civil conversation. You need to get along. You need to talk to your neighbor. If you can't honestly talk politics with somebody, talk about football, talk about the weather, talk to your neighbor. You can be friends without agreeing on political ideology, which I also believe has replaced religion.
Yeah.
I believe that the Republican and the Democrat Party personally have become a divisions of religion for people.
Oh yeah, totally.
So,
and I mean, granted, I'll be honest. I mean, I've fallen into the tribalism, trap as much as any other person in the past. Which is kind of one of the reasons why I shifted over to writing fiction, over like the past 5 years, was like for my part, like I've recognized that, that like, yeah, not everything the conservatives do is great either. And I mean, it does kind of worry me, some of the radical, elements that are taking place, that are trying to take Charlie's place. And, I think I've done a pretty good job of trying to call out both sides, but it's, kind of, I guess, the unfortunate thing is, I think the Shadows of Deception, which is this title of my series, they really are trying to, to play us off against each other.
Oh, absolutely.
I don't think, unfortunately, it's not as simple as in my books where there's a secret cabal of, of Spectre-like, people plotting on a smoky boardroom. But, like, I definitely think that, the media certainly makes money off of all this division, and it's just really unfortunate. So
it's like in my second book, volume 2, I had a conspiracy theory that I introduced toward the end of the book, where one party wants gun control, yet they feed guns to the streets. One party wants the control on drugs, yet they feed drugs to the streets, because they're both feeding off.
Yeah.
I outlined at the end of the book, towards the end of volume 2, that both parties, for those watching this who don't know the basis for the books, One Man's Journey Through the Next American Civil War, I leave it open-ended. I throw a conspiracy theory or two, like I said, in volume 2. But I put it out there that it was both parties, that it wasn't, that it was both parties. Every single bill they pass is to protect their power and to screw over the American people. It doesn't matter red or blue. They care about themselves. That's all there is to it. And that's where the division comes in, and that's where the unfortunate possible scenario, similar to my book, could come into play.
Yeah. Well, like I said, it seems like, I mean, I've said to people, I actually said this in the men's adventure fiction Discord, and I know it is mostly a political in there, but I said to a couple of the guys, I said, it's very unsettling that some of the stuff that I write about, and credit to Jake Woodbear, because he picked up immediately on kind of what I was getting at. I said, it's very unsettling a lot of the stuff that I wrote and that I thought was fiction just 5 years ago is kind of coming to
Coming
pass
true.
as,
Yeah.
yeah. And like I said, like I'm not even like a guy who's a political science major. I majored in English. Like my extent of like political involvement was I ran a chapter of the College of Republicans in college, so I'm a little more in tune to that. But like I was never like a poli-sci major or anything like that. But
Hmm.
just kind of doing the show and talking to authors, mostly military guys, about their experiences, and then doing like a Wednesday news recap show. Like it's and just kind of seeing what's going on in the news. It's interesting what's going on. So,
Hmm.
but anyway, well, you're on to book 3
Yep.
now, sir. So, what can we expect from this installment in
Well, I
the
will say
series?
book 3 is shorter than the other 2 books. And at first I was a little disheartened by the fact that it was shorter. And I thought, well, maybe I'll push it out, see if I can't. And then it occurred to me, volume 1 takes place over the course of about a year. Volume 2 takes place over the course of about 4 to 6 months. Volume 3, right behind me, takes place over no more than 10 days. This is
Oh,
10
wow.
This is 10 days in the life of the losers. And it is an intense 10 freaking days. So it's certainly it's a very interesting ride. I've had a little bit of feedback on it already, and guys are loving it. So
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you sent Jake Woodmer a copy yet, but he was saying, like, last time we talked, he was like, man, he said volume 2 I think is one of Richard's best. Which at the time I hadn't read volume 2 yet, but I just finished it recently and I would agree.
yeah,
So,
it was definitely even when you look at the second editions, the various changes that I did make regarding the first book specifically. Volume 2, when I wrote it as the first, as far as first editions were concerned, was my absolute best writing. And this book, Volume 3, again, I've elevated my writing from what it was even from Volume 2. And
yeah.
there's some surprises with this one. There is some surprises. And I'm not going to spoil them. I'm going to let the readers find out. So,
That's always good. I do have to ask you though, do you ever surprise yourself as an author
oh yes,
with where your story goes?
yes. In fact, Volume 2, there was several times where I'm like, wow, I didn't see that shit coming. Because you plan something and it never. The final meeting with King James was a great example. In Volume 2, and I had
Mm-hmm.
that in my mind. I had told the story to a dozen people how that was gonna go, and when I sat down and started writing, that's not what happened. And
Well,
it just it was completely different from what I intended to write. And I had a few big surprises even in Volume 3 as I was writing. I said, "Ooh, I should do this," And there was a couple times his fingers were punching keys, and I got done, and I looked up and I read what I wrote, and I said, "Oh my God, I didn't see that coming."
do you ever so do you I can't remember if I asked you this in the last episode, but are you someone who outlines, or do you are you more of a pantser like I am?
I I will write down most of the time. I will write down some bullet points. I want these three things to occur. Now I have to get there. And I'll do it per chapter. And there was several times writing this one where I didn't see, I wrote a bullet point and I said, okay, this is what's going to happen. This is where the guys are going to be. And then as I got them there, I was like, holy crap, that was intense. So
yeah, I'm kind of the same way. I don't really do outlines, but like you all kind of do bullet points for kind of kind of like the overview of a story that I have, in my head. And then what I'll do is generally once I have like a list of kind of ideas, and I just use my phone mainly, I keep like kind of like a running notepad for each book. And what I'll do is like I'll copy and paste that into Chat GPT, and then I'll ask Chat GPT, okay, here are my ideas. How would I structure these in an outline, and where would each theme or idea kind of go in what chapter order? And sometimes it'll spit something out that I like, and then, or sometimes it won't, and I'll refine it. But then I start drafting from there. And oftentimes what will happen is like other stuff will kind of come up, too, that will kind of fit, in future books as well. So, like the book I'm writing right now, American Inferno, for, book 5 in Shadows of Deception. Initially, I was just going to write about the whole Antifa, kind of those riots that are going on, and that. But then once the Charlie Kirk thing happened, I was kind of like, well, some people might think it's a bit early, but I feel like I have to kind of write about that or fit that into the narrative somehow, because I do feel that it kind of ties into the whole theme of, of a terrorist group wanting to bring the country down from within or something. So I've kind of added elements like that into the books as well. So, and that's the other thing, is sometimes, at least from what I've noticed, your second draft or even your final draft can be drastically different from your first draft, or when you started out writing something. So
yeah, with this one, I had a series of notes. I just in my phone, next chapter, X happens. Chapter after that, rescue mission. Chapter after that, blah blah blah. And okay, so I sit down, and sometimes I'll write it out in a notebook. If I can just to get the wheels turning, I'll try to write it in a notebook. And I sat down. I'm already, of course, into chapter 4 or volume 4, and I was writing stuff out. And I said, "Man, I don't like this." And I sat down and I thought about it, and I tried writing what my mind was showing me, and it wasn't coming. It wasn't coming out on the notebook whatsoever. And I ended up sitting down in front of the computer, and what originally in the first chapter was a paragraph turned into, a paragraph of the story being told, turned into 2.5 pages of the action. So it's already turning out better than where it was headed.
Well, that's always good. Where do you think your strongest suit in writing has improved? You've mentioned that with each with each book you've improved, and I think that's the case for every author. But is there a particular like area of writing that you felt you've improved on the most, and where do you think you still
For me,
um
the improvement is definitely in the details. Um, where telling the story now, you can see it in your head, right? You, the reader, can read it and see what you can see the character on the bridge, so to speak. You can see them in an overwatch position. You can see these things better now than you could before. And with volume 3, well, that strength is kind of the secret of the book. So I'm not going to ruin it.
very, very interesting. And what would you say is still your most difficult aspect of?
I would say definitely the discipline of sitting down and getting words on paper. That's my biggest problem, because
Yeah,
we're all busy, right? So sitting down and actually opening the laptop, you're getting up. Like this morning, I was up at 4:20. I'm like, oh, the alarm goes off in 10 minutes. I'm gonna lay back down for, you know. And at about 6 o'clock, I got out of bed. 6:30, I think it was, when I got out of bed. And I could have used that 2 hours to open the laptop, do the work. So that's kind of where it's at the moment, is refining the discipline. I carry a notebook with me when I'm not working. When I'm working, it's notes on the cell phone. I have 7 or 8 notebooks with every book I've written so far in each one, you know. So I got to go back and, oh, where's the notebook that I wrote that down in, you know?
yeah,
So organization would be another thing I'm not very good at.
yeah. One thing that people have recommended to me that I probably should do is that I need to write they call it like a lore Bible, because which I guess kind of keeps track of everything in your
Mm,
universe that happens. Because what I have tended to do is I'll go back and reread. The only time I ever really reread my books is when I'm writing stuff for you know whatever new one I'm writing, and I'm like,
mm,
okay, where did I leave off with X character, or
mm.
where did I you know or what happened in this scene, and did I leave a cliffhanger there, or did I wrap this storyline up, or something
Mm.
like that. So, um, one question that a listener actually wanted to know from our previous podcast is, uh, who is your favorite character to write, and are there any self-insert characters that you've put
There's
in?
definitely self-insertion in characters. The character of William has, without a doubt, has my background, has a lot of my personality traits. My favorite character that I've written, actually, though, is a character named Noah in a book that is not released. That was a fun character to write for me. Um, I've had fun writing all of the losers as a whole and developing each one of these guys and taking them from average Joe nobody to, quote unquote gunfighters. They're not special ops by any sense of the word. They're
Yeah,
just they're regular guys put in a real shit situation. And I've had a lot of fun writing those guys. I've had a lot of fun. Um, you get to see their development. You get to see their change. You get to see their arc. Um, and you're going to see quite a bit of change in a couple of characters in volume 3. Change that I talked about with people in my little group about doing with these guys, and so you're gonna see some big change with the group here. Even with William, who kind of peaked pretty good as an overall leader of the group in volume 2, you're going to see him hardline a little bit in volume 3, like you haven't seen him do so thus far.
Interesting. So do you think you're going to continue the Losers series? Like, are you already plotting for book 4?
I'm already working on book 4. I've got some outline notes. So where I had written, I had started writing differently than what I ended up doing. And I said, okay, well, how can I paste these two pieces together, because it would work to paste them together. I found that glue I needed. And then I bounced to the next chapter that I'm going to focus on for this. And I made some notes. And again, the discipline of it all, sit down, get the computer out, putting it together, putting in the work, putting in the time. So volume 3 is in the work, or sorry, volume 4 is certainly in the works. This series, Our War series, will end at book 5. The final chapter is already written. I wrote it a year and a half ago. So
is that weird then, to like kind of know how the series ends already?
So yes and no, because when I wrote the first book, as you know, as any author, the beginning is the hardest part.
Yeah.
And about midpoint of the first book, I said, ooh, I know how it's going to end. And the way I ended the first one, of course, I picked right up the very next page for volume 2. And I knew right then and there where volume 2 was going to end. It didn't, again, there was a lot of surprises, but I knew what that last moment would be. So
Yeah.
volume 3 was easy because, again, you're picking up where you left off. Volume 4 has already been difficult because I'm going to spoil it, I guess. It's going to be a year people will forget anyway. But volume 4 does not pick up where volume 3 left off. I'm doing that. I am doing that intentionally.
So
starting this book was a little difficult.
So are you doing like a prequel then? Is that kind of, or
the events, where it ends will get talked about later in volume 4.
Okay. Yeah, I don't
just not first page stuff. But again, we've got well over a year for that to come to pass. So
yeah, the thing that's interesting for me is like writing a prequel and writing for characters who, like, technically in the present day timeline of Shadows of Deception are already dead, but then, like, going back and, like, writing these prequel series that take place in the 80s and whatnot. It's like, okay, they're alive, but then how do we, so, like, why do they matter? Why should we follow them in their exploits if we already know that they're going to, be killed off, at some point. That's always interesting, is when you're writing a character that is going to die at some point and falling, their stories anyway. That's actually one of the things that, I mean, not to name drop one of the big ones, but that is one thing I'm very curious about with the new Jack Carr book,
Hmm.
Cry Havoc, that
Yeah.
follows Reese's dad, because we kind of already know that Reese's dad was a SEAL during the Vietnam War, and we know that he gets killed off at some point, like right before, like 9/11 or something
Hmm.
like that. So then, kind of like I'm not interested, and I don't mean this to sound condescending, but it's like, okay, we already know that he's going to die. So then, like, what is it about his story
Oh, but
that you?
that story has me. And again, I understand your point, but at the
Oh
same
yeah,
time, you've been given enough. And I'm behind on my Jack Carr reading, but you've been given enough teasers about his father's life
yeah.
that the curiosity is what has me gripped on Cry Havoc.
I'm I'm curious enough, just because, like, I have neighbors who uh I have I have one neighbor in particular who served in Vietnam. He wasn't special operations group that I know of, but he knew a lot
Hmm.
of SOG guys, and so uh, I'm interested in it from that perspective. And I mean, yeah, I think Tom Reese, could be compelling. I think,
Hmm.
especially as as also the TV series and whatnot gets
Yeah.
developed. So, um, which has been very, very interesting as well. I don't know if you've seen uh, the new Terminalist series with Taylor Kitsch, but I just finished that, and it was pretty interesting.
I have actually not watched TV in months. Um,
Well, good on you.
I've got my TV sitting right over here. When I get home, actually first thing in the morning when I get home, it doesn't matter. I I turn the TV on, I scroll down, I hit the Pandora radio, and I listen to the music while I'm cooking, while I'm doing the dishes, while I'm writing. It's the music in the background.
So
I've had no hard interest in sitting down and watching anything lately.
I don't really watch much either, as far as like current TV.
Mhm.
That's like the only thing that I've watched, like, contemporary, that's like, more modern. Like, right now I'm rewatching the original run of Dexter right now.
Nice.
The show, the Showtime series. I'm like, there are enough series in the past that, like, even though I've watched, they're worth the rewatch. Like, I don't, and plus, like, I always tend to read, like, books from, like, other authors in the indie community too.
Hmm.
So, like, I've got plenty of entertainment,
Oh yeah,
just with reading too.
yeah.
And then I imagine too. Um, I don't know if you've shared. Have you shared much publicly about your career? Or?
Not too much. Current job is post office.
Okay,
What I did before that, I spent better than 20 years of my life in the military surplus business with my family.
right.
Um, Maybe it's time for a career change. I don't know. Toying with it now.
Well,
So,
the reason I bring that up is I'm just curious, because I know that I know that you work in the post office. So I'm not sure if
mhm.
I wasn't
Yeah,
sure if you had said that
I talked
before.
about it. I talked about it in the lives um, a few times where I brought it up. Um, but and at this point, I'm thinking maybe it's time for a career change. Um,
Do you get much, like, downtime for, like, reading or listening to, like, podcasts or anything like that during the day?
so
Or
no, not during the day. Absolutely not. And here as of late, even my reading is a little backlogged. I'm still trying to finish up Fade In. I've only got a few chapters of that left. And then, of course, I've got a very expansive library behind me and ahead of me on the opposite wall. I mean, there's 250, 300 books in this house right now. And I got a couple in particular lined up next real quick. I've got a Brad Thor. I am going to jump into the world of Stephen King in November, just to give that a whirl. While I continue to write in the dad life and work.
Yeah. Speaking of Fade In, I mean that's a terrific book.
Yes, it is.
I just finished it, and I don't know if you saw, but I actually had Kyle on a few months ago now,
Mhm.
and man, terrific guy. It also could not be nicer.
Yeah.
Too. I mean, he's super down to earth, and like I was really nervous about like interviewing about first, just because I had never really, I hadn't read the Mitch Rapp books until I got into college, and I only started reading about like a year before Kyle took over this series, and then when Kyle did, I was still in college, so like I was like 20, 21 years old, and then so like to be interviewing Kyle like just a decade later was like, that was pretty surreal.
That's
and
awesome.
So it was like it was like, hey man, like I've been a fan for as long as you've been writing the rap series, and so that was really cool. And I don't want to spoil anything, but the way that Fade In ends, I don't know if there's going to be a sequel or not.
Yeah.
It's like, it's one of those things where it could go either way. I'm hoping that he continues to write, whether it be with the Fade character or with other things, because I think I think he's really talented, and I think he deserves a lot more credit than just being like, the guy who took over for Vince Flynn. Obviously, that's going to be a huge part of his legacy.
Yeah.
But I think Kyle's tone is very different in his own writing than the Vince Flynn books, and that that's good.
Yeah.
I think.
I've got several of Kyle's books on the shelf, and like I said, it's been a roller coaster ride, and for the last couple of years, and trying to balance life and get back to the reading like I had been. And it's here lately, it has been, okay, I've got the time to read, but I really need to focus on this part of the next project, or this part of that project. And I currently have 5 or 6 open projects on my computer. I'm going to spoil this. This will be in the official release copy of Volume 3, but I am planning to put out 3 next year.
Wow.
Oh, wow. Somebody, actually Eric Bishop, had invited me onto a project. And the timing for that was really weird, because I had just wrote the final chapter for the Our War series. And in the final chapter, I mentioned, and I just wrote it in a notebook, which is in the pile of notebooks over there. But I mentioned this female character who had never appeared in a book yet. And Bishop reaches out to me and he says, okay, I want you to be part of this project. You got to write about a female character that has appeared or will appear in your books. Well, sweet. I got one.
I know exactly what you're talking about, because I too am in that chat.
And he ended up backing out of the project. Him and I were discussing it. And I said, well, the hell with it. I'm going to write her story anyway. I've already started. And I thought, well, I'll make a novella. And then I had a fan contact me and say, well, I want to know more about this guy over here and that guy over there. You should write novellas about them. And I'm like, that's kind of a good idea. I'm already working on one anyway, right?
Yeah.
And I was kind of pacing around, talking to myself. That's how I think. And I said, oh shit, I've got the perfect one, and I gave the title away in volume 3.
Interesting.
So you'll see, with the official release copy, you're going to get the title, and then you'll see where I gave the title away after the fact, anyways.
Yeah.
Without even realizing what I was doing.
Yeah. So that was the funny thing with Night of the Vigilante. My series was initially like I'd written the character of Jason Miller in Night of the Vigilante as like a side character, and I was gonna kill him off like in book 3, but then one of the beta readers, a friend I went to school with in college, was like, I don't think you should kill this guy off. In fact, like, he's one of the most fascinating characters. Like, I'd like to see a novella about him. So then that's what I did, and it really fit in well, kind of because at that time, the men's adventure fiction, the Veritas guys, that was when they started doing the whole Western theme, type of thing. So I'm like, well, this could be an interesting, kind of way to, put this character out there. So I did. I self-published it through my own imprint, but as it turns out, like, Night of the Vigilante, I think is like one of my best sellers this year. Sometimes you got to give the fans what they want.
Oh yeah.
Even if you're not, fully expecting, because sometimes what the audience wants is different from what, you might think as.
There's this spin-off idea that I actually had since volume 2, the original release of volume 2 back in 22. And it was something Jeff and I kind of talked about, Jeff Clark, when I was on with him all those years ago. So the idea of doing spin-offs was already there. But to take it to the level, and then the conversation with Bishop and turning that project into something, and then going forward with other projects, it's like, okay, this is gonna be fun.
Yeah. Have you ever considered like writing any like stories or series outside of the Losers universe?
So one of the projects that's completed to a degree on my computer, Meet the Monster, the character of Noah I had told you about. I have 60 query letters out for that right now.
Wow.
I'm going to put out another 60 in the next 30 days. I am seeking representation because this book, I do believe, is unique. And yes, it is intended to be a series at this point. I've started putting together the beginning of the next book for that. There was another series-ish that I had started back in early 23 that's still open on the computer, and it's always here. I just haven't jumped on it yet.
Yeah. So you've self-published the Loser series, but with this new one, you're going to go more traditional, you're thinking?
That's what I would like to see happen with it. Yes.
Interesting. And you've never had anything traditionally published
No.
before?
Nope.
Okay, so that will be, if it happens, it'll be a new experience for you.
All the way, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It is a project that I had the idea for when I was writing the first Our War back in 2017 when I first started writing it. And I didn't actually begin writing it until 23. And then I couldn't stop writing it. It was extremely therapeutic and a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So
No, those are always the best,
yeah.
the ones that are kind of therapeutic. That is one thing though too, like I guess with traditional publishing. I mean, I published I guess kind of went through traditional publishing with Veritas for some online short stories, but one thing that I guess is always you hear stories of authors self-publish, and then because they give the rights away to their stories, they have no, they don't own their own franchise anymore or something like that. So it's kind of like, okay, so which one of your children do you give away to the publisher or something
Yeah.
like that? So yeah, that's interesting. So you've got Losers Volume 3 coming out in November. And then where's kind of your roadmap from there? Do you think, is this going to be the only book you release this year, or are you?
That'll be it for 25. But I have 2 novellas and volume 4 planned for next year, for 26, and we'll see how, without trying to rush too much, we will see how quickly I can get out the first of the 2 novellas for 26.
That's awesome, and it's certainly ambitious. To do 2 novellas plus
Yeah.
novel. I usually just do like 2 to 3 novellas a year, and that's enough as is.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing too, I don't know about you, but like one of the challenges I've faced is like trying to figure out when to release things.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, I would not mind. I'm not saying this is how it's going to be, but I would not mind seeing the first novella released January, February. As far as the second one, that's where the torn portion is in my mind. Would I release the second one before volume 4 or after? That I don't know yet. We'll just have to see how it goes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you seem to have a game plan, and that's more than a lot of authors do who just pants things. So, and you're still, I know you're not doing the live streams, but you're still doing or are you doing the live streams still?
I tried doing live on Facebook, and they boot it after 30 days. Where Instagram, you can still go back and watch my lives from last year.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do probably little short videos that I can post in place of the live, kind of talk about the same thing, give people updates, and it just won't be with people adding commentary or asking questions.
Tried maybe like doing YouTube or like Substack or anything like that, because I know they support video.
A couple of guys, one of the guys I know recommended the Rumble thing.
Yeah, Rumble's great.
That was recommended to me, but at this point, I'm going to try to consolidate my plates a little bit and try to get more work done. And if I do a little pre-recorded thing that I throw up on a Sunday or on a Wednesday for people to watch, and ask me questions during the week that I answer on the weekend, then that's what I'll end up doing for now.
Yeah. Well, if you are ever interested in doing like any live stream type of things, just let me know, and I'm always helpful to help out with that. As
Absolutely.
Podcasting for a while, but
Mhm.
anyway, well, Richard, where can people find you and your books?
They can find me
And
on Instagram and X at rmaverickbooks. On Facebook, richardmaverickbooks.com or Richard Maverick Books, no .com there. Not yet, anyway. And all the books can be found. There's nothing up yet for Volume 3, as I was waiting to finish the edits, which I'll have wrapped up this weekend. And then the ebook will be available just as quick as it can be. But the books can be found on Amazon.
well, yeah, I'll be sure to link all of your stuff in the show notes, and once the book is out, let me know, and I'd be happy to have you back on, or to do a
Absolutely.
promo for you.
Absolutely.
And I mean, I want to thank you for your time, and I know it's kind of been a crazy last few weeks, but appreciate you coming on anyway, especially.
And I appreciate you for having me.
Anytime. And so, folks, go and check out Richard's books, the Loser series. I think you're gonna like it, and I do have one of his challenge coins around here somewhere. I think it's on my other desk. But thanks for tuning in, folks, and we'll talk to you down the road.
The right to offend is not some pesky little part of freedom of speech that we have to put up with. It is the heart and soul and lungs of freedom of speech. It is the coursing lifeblood of human progress. It is the instigator of liberty and modernity and science and understanding. What a laughing stock today's student leaders are, that they can so casually dismiss the right to be offensive without realizing that their lovely, enlightened lives are the gift of individuals who gave offense. Offensiveness is not just something we have to begrudgingly accept. Offensiveness is the motor of human progress.
Thank you for watching the Whitfield Report live on the Right to Offend Media Network. Make sure to check out Sam's books on Amazon, Audible, and Kindle. You can follow Sam on X at SamW_NGC and the Right to Offend Media Network at RTO Media. Like, comment, subscribe, and share with your friends. And until next time, God bless, God save this great nation. God, freedom, legacy, in that order.